In the early days of the BSA, the younger boy problem was on the minds of those getting the organization up and running. However, for Chief Scout Executive James E. West, it was more of a distraction than an issue requiring the attention of himself and the limited resources of the National Council. West believed boys under 12 should not be scouts, and that developing a program for them would not be appropriate for American boys, despite Baden-Powell's success with his cubbing program in England. West also believed any program for younger boys would only confuse the youth and their parents and dilute the program he was developing for boys aged 12 to 15. He did not see a younger boy program as feeding into the Boy Scouts of America, but instead he saw it as a distraction that would limit growth in membership of the BSA. While West held these beliefs, another group of Scouters decided to develop a young boy program with the goal of transitioning boys from their program to another youth program when they turned 12. We'll learn more about this program, the Boy Rangers of America, in this edition of Artifact of the Week. In November of 1912, Emerson Brooks, a Boy Scout commissioner from Montclair, New Jersey, was invited by Commissioner Frank F. Gray to join a troop on a hike. According to Brooks, the air was filled with moisture, giving the promise of rain, but in answer to my doubtful query, the commissioner informed me that a good scout never quits because the weather is unfavorable. Brooks goes on to tell the story of a young scout trying to start a fire in the wet conditions found at the conclusion of the hike. The commissioner said, "Scout, you're having a hard time. Ground wet, wood wet, nothing willing to burn." The boy doubled his efforts and then looked at the scoutmaster hopelessly. And after a pause, the quiet voice went on, "And you would like to give up, but you can't because you're a scout." Stooping over, Mr. Gray moved 2 or 3 stones away from the windward side of the circle and suggested, "Now try." And in a few moments, a contented and successful little scout was broiling a hot dog over a cheery fire. Those words, "You would like to give up, but you can't because you're a scout," inspired Brooks. He met a few more times with groups of scouts assembled by Commissioner Gray, and in January of 1914, 6 boys under the age of 11 met with Brooks at the First Congregational Church in Montclair to organize as the Boy Pioneers of America. From the first, the atmosphere of the new organization was to be North American Indian, and the Sioux tribe was formed at the first meeting, each lad receiving his Indian name at the same time. In 1915, it was decided to change to our present name, Boy Rangers of America, and in 1918, at the suggestion of James E. West, Chief Executive of the Boy Scouts, the Rangers were incorporated in New York State without an expense to our organization. Quickly, the new organization grew as nearby municipalities requested information and started local lodges. Between 50 and 60 lodges formed, all functioning along the original lines and looking up to the Mother Lodge, Montclair No. 1, for advice, instruction, and inspiration. Between 1915 and 1922, Brooks worked with and tested his program on more than 700 members of the Mother Lodge. He established a supply department, prepared and printed a handbook, and designed and adopted uniforms and insignia. In 1922, following the publication of an illustrated article in the Congregationalist Journal that sparked national interest in the Ranger program, Brooks gave up his business and decided to devote all of my energies to the interest of boys between 8 and 12 years of age. By 1922, there were more than 200 lodges in 37 states. The plan for the Boy Rangers was simple. A complete Ranger Lodge is made up of 4 tribes of 12 members each, including the tribal officers, a total of 48. Rangers are divided into 4 grades: Papoose, Brave, Hunter, and Warrior. They attain these grades by answering a series of questions for each grade and by putting in their medicine bag the 3 qualities assigned to the respective grades. The medicine bag is the soul of the Boy Ranger movement, and each member makes for himself and into which he puts each day the qualities he wishes to acquire as habits. Good medicine and bad medicine represent good and bad actions, which, when repeated, become habits. Making a medicine bag is forming character. For boys who lived in areas where there was no lodge or no immediate chance of forming a lodge, a boy could become a free ranger. These free rangers could take the tests and earn the honors of the Boy Rangers, but could not hold an office until a lodge was formed. Rangers were required to learn the 12 Ranger laws, called the Constitution. It was put in the form of a rhyme and could be recited to the tune of Yankee Doodle Dandy to help with memorization. Note how closely it follows the Scout law. Trusty Tommy was a ranger, loyal, true to every test, helpful to the needy stranger, friendly, giving of his best, courteous to the girls he knew, kind, a good turn every day, obedient to his parents too, cheerful both in work and play, thrifty, saving for a need, brave and not a faker, clean in thought, in speech and deed, reverent to his maker. The Ranger pledge is, I will do my best to live up to the Ranger Constitution and help my brother Rangers do the same. I will make an honest effort as a Ranger to do a good turn each day and pay my wampum each week. The motto of the Boy Rangers is be trustworthy. However, they were also known to use talk straight, think straight, live straight. It was also common for local lodges to develop their own custom motto, and many of these that were considered successful were shared throughout the organization. Despite the many similarities to the BSA, there was one significant difference found in the Boy Rangers. Brooks allowed women to serve as guides. In the 1922 edition of the handbook, it reads, when the chief guide has been asked to express an opinion as to the advisability of organizing new lodges with women as ranger guides, his answer has invariably been that he preferred efficient women to inefficient men, and that is the attitude of the headquarters on the subject. The Boy Rangers of America saw themselves as an independent organization with a complete program of its own adapted to boys between the ages of 8 and 12. It has its own specific aims and methods to prepare a boy for life and living. Although it is a separate and distinct organization, and although it endeavors to avoid a duplication and a paralleling of the distinctive work of other organizations, it does lead the way and in a sense prepare a boy for all other organizations with equally high purposes. The principles of the Ranger Constitution, the pledge, and the motto of the national organization are entirely in harmony with those of the church, of the YMCA Pioneer, the Boy Scouts, the Woodcraft League, the Boys Club Federation, and all other recognized organizations working amongst the boys. Since the Ranger age ends at early adolescence, where the work of most other boys' organizations begins, it is only natural that a boy of 12 becomes affiliated with that organization, which in principle continues the work begun by the Ranger. Well, now that we've learned a little bit about the Boy Rangers, who was Emerson Brooks? Brooks was born in 1860 and was an innovative and leading designer of coaches and bodies for the automotive industry. In February 1917, he partnered with Paul Ostruck, a native of Bohemia, to form the Brooks Ostruck Company. While together, they designed and manufactured many distinctive body designs for Pierce Arrow, Packard, and Rolls-Royce, to name a few of the automakers they worked with. The company's most celebrated design was for a 1921 Packard special ordered by a Manchurian warlord. The armor-plated bulletproof vehicle featured built-in gun ports and windows with movable metal shutters and a dash-mounted machine gun. Unfortunately, the designers and engineers did not reinforce or harden the roof of the vehicle, and in 1928 a bomb was dropped on the roof, killing the warlord. Brooks was also a commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America in Montclair, New Jersey. His wife Alice died in 1926, and he devoted the rest of his life to scouting and philanthropy until his death in 1948. In the collection of the National Scouting Museum, we have several items related to the Boy Rangers of America program. We have several copies of the handbook from 1922 through 1928. Interestingly, the handbook is written as part history book, part leader's manual, and part handbook for the boys that belong to the Boy Rangers. We also have this red felt monogram insignia, which was designed to be worn on the left breast pocket of the jacket or uniform. Speaking of uniforms, the Sigmund Eisner Company supplied uniforms for the Boys Ranger just as they did for the BSA. The uniform is an olive drab midi blouse with shorts or knickers and the midi hat bearing the silver hat monogram. For guides, the uniform was a khaki Norfolk coat with the red monogram on the left sleeve 5 inches below the shoulder seam. For guides who did not have a full uniform, they could wear the guide armband or the guide's monogram pin. Note on the guide's pin that the silver monogram was surrounded by a wreath. We also have 3 copies of Boy Ranger, the official publication of the Boy Rangers of America. This publication is mentioned in the handbook as a way for guides to stay up to date on the latest programming ideas found to be successful with lodges around the country. Finally, we have this parade flag for Montclair Lodge Number 1. The Montclair Lodge is referred to as the Mother Lodge and is where many new ideas were tested before being allowed to be shared with other lodges around the country. Now, this particular flag was presented by E. Erner Goodman to Lauren Barkley on September 18, 1950. While James E. West never fully embraced the Boy Rangers of America, he did encourage its development and growth. When he introduced Commissioner Brooks at the 1924 Biennial Conference, he said Brooks had worked out something entirely different and gave it an entirely different name. It has worked under conditions which divorced it in the mind of the boy and the parent and the community from any relationship to the Scout movement. According to Brooks' obituary, written in 1948, membership in the Boy Rangers peaked at 200,000 in 40 states and several foreign countries. When the Cub Scout program of the BSA began in the 1930s, the Boy Ranger program began to transfer to the BSA and was fully absorbed in 1933, with one notable exception: Boy Ranger Lodge number 527, which met in the basement of the Wellesley Congregational Church in Wellesley, Massachusetts. For approximately 50 boys and their fathers, the Boys Rangers lived on in Wellesley until the early 1990s when the lodge closed for good. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Join us next time as we continue to learn more about the history of Scouting America through the collection of the National Scouting Museum and Artifact of the Week.